Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm your friendly neighborhood host, Meenakshi Iyer, founder and principal of North Star Solutions and Services LLC, which is a boutique, future work-oriented consultancy that focuses on unpacking leadership at the messy middle. And today I'm so thrilled to be here with all of you on episode 2 of our third season of Conversations That Matter, where we are focused on reframing leadership for an ever-evolving world of work. And I'm thrilled as always to do this in collaboration with my mentor coach, Priya Ramesh. And this is our third year doing it. The first couple of years, we focused on psychological safety at work. And last year, we focused on being human in a digital world. And so for this season, it's 3 Tuesdays, 3 conversations. So last Tuesday, we started off this series on reframing leadership, talking about leading with purpose. And today, for today's episode, I'm going to hand it off to Priya to kick us off and lead us through. Over to you, Priya.
Thank you, Meenakshi. As always, a pleasure to be back here in this conversation with you. Conversations that matter is important for us because we think these conversations help open up discussions to people to look at how the world of work is evolving.
Mm.
And this series, this is episode 2 of the series, season 3, sorry. Our focus is on reframing leadership. And the reason we are discussing reframing leadership is because the world of work has evolved, has changed. Who we
Mm.
lead has changed. Where we lead from has changed.
Yes.
At what stages do we enter a workforce has changed. And there is a paradigm shift in how we engage with our people at
Mm.
work. So, in this 3 part series, we are talking about 3 aspects of reframing leadership. Last week, we talked about leading with purpose. Today, we are talking about leading through change. And the next episode would be leading with humanity.
Yeah.
So, today, we are going to embark on the conversation on leading change and leading through change.
Mm.
So one as someone who is an initiator of change, and the other perspective is how does one go through change? So, Meenakshi, it's been a pleasure always to have these conversations with you. And just a quick introduction. Meenakshi and I have been collaborating for the past 3 years, before that as well, but formally in this format
Yes.
for the past 3 years. I'm a leadership coach and founder of a boutique firm called Orenda. It's a center for leadership excellence where we offer multiple offerings and interventions for leadership development. So, to kick us off, Meenakshi, in today's conversation, which is about leading through change, when was the last time you experienced change at work?
Uh, oh gosh. Uh, I know when we were prepping for this conversation, we had talked about this, and I thought I was going to talk about a particular thing, and now I'm like, oh my God, which one should I talk about? So that itself tells you the pace and the intensity and the amount of change that one experiences these days. At work. Hmm. Mm. So something that just popped into my head, which is different from what I had thought I would share originally, is really when I was this is I want to say about 2 to 3 years ago. And it was the company I was working with at the time, they were announcing their first round of layoffs. And it was a fairly small company. And so it it uh, it felt very big, the layoffs, because it was a small company to begin with. Um, I survived the first round
Mhm.
because they had a couple of rounds of layoffs, and I was affected by the second one or third one
Mm.
maybe. But the first one, I was there when it happened,
Mm.
and just watching everything happen. And although I knew that, I kind of had anticipated that happening based on, I've been around the block a little too long, I guess. So I was reading all the signs. But still, going through it, it still affected me. Although I
Mm.
was ready, or I don't know, I knew what was going to come potentially. And I was also in a spot where I was sort of, I thought, mentally prepared for whatever was going to happen or might happen. But going through it was difficult,
Mm.
even though I wasn't one of the ones affected at that point in time.
However much we are prepared, I think, Meenakshi, there's also an emotional turmoil that one goes through when it actually hits us, right?
Yes, yes.
And, the grief cycle that we speak about, um, there is always something about, oh, this is not going to happen to me. Or things are going to change very fast. This is temporary. We tend to rationalize. We are in a state of denial, and it brings up its own emotions until a point, and then sometimes we're angry, and then we sort of go right deep down into the depths of it until we are able to accept and then perhaps work through this change.
Yeah.
For some people, the cycle is pretty fast. Some people, it is a longer cycle. What was it like for you?
Mm. In that context, I think it was somewhere in between, in the sense that, so between the time this first layoff happened and when I was affected, I think it was about 6 to 8 months in between. So that experience, the scarring from it kind of stayed on. I mean, it's still there, I think, because I'm still thinking about it and everything is so vivid in my mind as I'm recollecting it.
Mhm.
But it was also the abruptness of it.
Mm.
I understand the from a business perspective what causes these layoffs. I understand, like, there's a lot of cognitive understanding for me about this whole
Mhm.
process, but just being there, a part of it, I think, I remember 3 4 months after the first round of layoffs had happened, thinking that, oh my God, I wish I'd been laid off as part of that, because it was so hard to stay on uh, and experience everything else, all the fallout from that, which was a little bit emotionally draining and unpleasant at times. And um, the workload shifted. There were, because layoffs are so. It's sad that it's become commonplace in the tech space,
Mhm.
particularly. It's a sad reality of our lives, but it doesn't take away the emotional ups and downs that one experiences, both those affected and those left behind.
Mhm.
So I think for me, the immediate reaction was feeling, experiencing this survivor's guilt. That, oh, I'm here, but my colleagues are not. And
Right.
also how it's not just a job, especially in the US context, which is where which is home now for the last 16 years. Our jobs are more often than not tied to our health insurance. And sometimes it's not just for myself as the employee, but also my whole family. So losing
Mhm.
your job, even if there is severance, even if there is, these involuntary exits usually come with, oh yeah, we'll cover you for X number of days or months. It still puts everything, it just
Yeah.
upends everything in people's lives.
Wow.
So those with dependents and or those who are in caregiver roles and things like that. And I knew a few people like that who were affected. So I think it went from feeling a sense of the survivor's guilt to I think they should have just gotten rid of all of us, the whole team. The working in a fractured team was very difficult also. And then because there's no opportunity. There's so much of secrecy around this that's taxing, and because of that, there's also no opportunity at all for any sort of handoff. But the work has to continue. So you just pick up the
Correct.
pieces however well you can, and then just keep on going. So it was a
Mm.
weird mix of uh,
Mm.
mostly sad and unpleasant emotions, I would say, and it lasted a
Right.
period of 6 to 8 months.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's interesting what you're saying because it also brings to light two aspects of change.
Mm.
Now, were you the change initiator, or a change was initiated by somebody else and you had to follow through?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think the emotions around following through, I don't know if I should generalize, but my sense is it's harder than when you initiate the change yourself.
Uh, eh, yes and no. I think what you said is fair. I think it really um, depends on the type of change, I'd say.
Hmm.
What I mean by that is, so something like a layoff, for example, even those initiating that change, it's equally hard. They have a different set of emotions that they have to deal with.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
But if it is something growth related, let's say you're opening a new branch or you are taking on a new client, um, uh, as long as there is, I think if the change involves some sort of loss, um, I think both sides have their own set of emotions to deal with in a corporate setting, I would say. But if it is to do with some acquisition of any sort, it it comes with its own challenges. But then you're perhaps, again, I'm guessing, uh, perhaps the sense of motivation and inspiration is a lot higher than otherwise. And I think in that case, there can be a difference in how change initiators versus change followers experience the same change. Introduction of a new process or introduction of a new system. I've been a part of that as well. I've been part of teams that would go in and implement enterprise-wide some sort of technology system or software. It's very exciting for the sponsors of that project. But the
Hmm.
people who actually will use the system, they have all kinds of concerns and worries because they are the ones who have to experience the change. They're not the change catalysts.
Right. Wow.
Yeah, yeah,
That's important to, um, yet I think even for somebody who's initiating change, and I'm saying this from my recent, I've just initiated a change in my work pattern, which is
yeah. I was
set up
going
a
to
new
ask you.
project,
Yeah.
to set up a new project, right? It's called the Pi project. What it is, it's very exciting because I'm starting something where I feel that I'm contributing to society, community at large, sharing inspiring stories of people who have been resilient through challenges. Even in that, there is some element of emotions. It's excitement is there.
Mm,
I'm inspired to, and I'm playing the role of a change initiator there, which is I'm leading this change.
yes.
It's not part of my usual routine line of work, but I'm initiating this change. It still means that I give up a few things. It still means that I adopt
Mm,
something new. For example, I have to give up the time I have set aside for something else. I have to manage my time, right? Give up a little bit of, because my routine work has to go on. My other work has to go on. Coaching work has to go on. So I've got to find time, which means I have to give up on a few things. And then you wonder, oh my God, should I have started on this?
mm,
And I also have to accept, when you're having conversation in this change, it's about having conversations with the others. So there's a lot of back and forth in terms of scheduling,
yes.
timing, setting up the technical logistics. So there's a little bit of an anticipation fear, how is it all coming together? But I would also say at the same time, I agree completely, Meenakshi, when you say that it's a new project that I'm initiating. The excitement is bigger than anything else.
Yeah. Yeah. I like the way you phrase that. Yes. Yes.
That excitement is coming from, I'm relating to this to our previous conversation. It's coming from the purpose of why I'm initiating this
Mm,
change. The purpose is to make a difference, to inspire, to give back. And I think if I'm clear, or any one of us is clear about why the change,
mm.
I think there's the way we go through these emotions, the grief cycle, so to say, would be different.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love the tie back to our first episode from last Tuesday on purpose. One of the
Yes.
things you had honed in on, Priya, was also the ability to communicate. And I know that's such an overused word, but we talked about how communicating the purpose and in a way where leaders are able to connect their people with the purpose,
Mm.
contextualize the purpose for that individual or team, and also doing it often enough so that it
Yes.
it is fresh in memory. And then how do you practice your purpose? How do you live out your purpose? um, and what's coming up for me now is that when we talk about change, and I know when you introduced the topic for today, you talked about leading change and leading through change, which is whether you are the one uh, initiating the change, or are you the one who has to just experience the change or implement the change.
Yes.
And leaders um, who are able to somehow translate all the chaos into clarity, they are the ones
Mhm.
that's the differentiating skill
Right.
when it comes to change. And to me, that ties back to, like how you said, your purpose around your project
Mm.
created that excitement, and that kind of um, eclipsed everything else, the fears or the anxiety around it. But so the closer you are to understanding and living out your purpose, that's what I'm taking away from this, is that the closer you are to understanding and articulating your purpose, the better off you are, the more energized you are, and the more equipped you are to deal with change, which is a constant in now more than ever.
And the pace at which it is happening, right?
Yes.
It's not just that we have to accept the fact that change is probably the only constant. It's also the speed and the depth of change has increased tremendously.
Yes.
So it's really important for us to be change ready. We might not know what the change is, but
Mm,
it requires, I think, for us to have a mindset that is ready for change,
mm. That anticipates change.
that anticipates change, that it's
Mm,
going to happen, right? It's going to happen. And when you talked about communicating and aligning, the other thing that came to mind, I mean, actually, is also when you have to align people to change, either as an initiator or as a follower. See, what we often forget is the people in the equation.
mm,
For example, a new policy is being initiated, a new process, a technical process, a new process comes into being. I think it's pretty much easier. You have data, you give them facts. This is what's going to happen. This is the SOP starting from tomorrow.
mm,
Yeah. But to allow people to that requires consistent communication, like you said, and communication to align them to this change.
yes.
And that is, to me, a factor that we often overlook. We start a new, we initiate something new and say, okay, from tomorrow onwards, or even let's say next month onwards, we're going to have, people flocking into office, perhaps 9 in the morning.
Mm,
Or you're going to say, no, from next month, it's all the work from home is going to stop. You're going to get back to work. So in policy, it is done.
mm,
The process is done. But getting people to align to this change and actually make sure that on the first of the next month they do come to work
Mm.
requires, I think, the leadership really needs to put themselves out there to be able to communicate effectively, consistently, and communicate the purpose of why they're doing this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, as part of what we want to offer to the audiences here is also to say that there are three ways in which we can reframe.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look at it from three lenses. One, it's important that in this pace, depth, and speed of change, I think it's good for leaders to accept that leaders don't have all the answers.
Mm.
Some of the best solutions come from rank and file and our ability to be able to anticipate change. And it means that we bring in, again, coming back to more conversations, more communication, more inclusion
Mm.
in how we communicate this change, and being okay with the fact that being vulnerable, saying that I might not have all the answers. I can't say that if we do this, this is exactly how it's going to turn out. There are far too many variables now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's true. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, so I was just thinking, I will put out the three reframes and maybe spend some time to deep dive a little bit on what resonates for each of us, right? So first thing being the leaders don't have all the answers. It's important to reframe in our own minds. And the change is constant, whether you choose to grow from it or be threatened by it,
Mm.
uh, or allow it to limit you is really a personal choice. So how
Mm.
we receive this change, this reality, is a personal choice. And the third reframe that we want to offer is also to say that the best way to navigate this is to sense and respond.
Mm. Mm.
Sensing when change is happening, sensing and anticipating change and responding accordingly.
Mm.
So I'll take a step back here and actually ask you, how do these three reframes, what does this bring up for you?
One is that change is happening with or without you.
Yeah.
That's what
That's
came up
true.
for me. And I was reminded of this John Maxwell quote that says, change is a constant. What was it? Change is inevitable, growth is optional. And I was reminded of that quote when you talked about, change is a constant, whether you choose to grow from it or not is up to you. Um, and um, the other thing that's coming up for me is when you talked about leaders not having all the answers. And I think that is a big reframe from a leadership perspective, and that ties back to our theme for the season, because we in several organizations, regardless of type of industry, we still operate we look up to leaders and expect them to have all the answers. We do that in government and politics. We expect the government to solve all our problems. We expect political leaders to have all the answers, right? I think it's top of mind for me with it being election season in the US. Um, so and I think that's a lot we're putting on a select group of people, and it's high time we shifted away from that, and both for leaders to be open about what they don't know and being curious to fill those gaps, and also for the rest of us as followers not to put all that load of expectations on our leaders, and really become participatory and take ownership, and this is the time to really operate from a space of self-leadership. So those were a couple of things that came up for me.
I like, I think it's very interesting the word you use, participation. And I think participatory leadership, um, it's extremely important during times of change.
Yep.
Um, it it is about moving together.
Mm.
It is about inclusion.
Mm.
It is about leader that does not have to know everything,
Yes.
as long as there is participation. And even those who are following change, right?
Mm.
They're not initiators, but they are followers of change. How can leaders help them find their own agency
Yes. Yes.
in that limited, you know, not operate from a sense of entitlement that it come to me and I'm a victim of this, but saying in this, given this, what's my role? How can I participate? How can I? And for that, the uh, the leaders need to include,
Mm.
allow space, provide the safety for people to participate in this change. Participation is such a there's so much equality around.
Mm.
It's not I'm telling you to change. It's not I'm receiving a change. What's my agency here? How can I
Mm.
participate in this? I think that's a very interesting word.
Mm. Mm. Um, so in this context, what's coming up for me, Priya? So in my coaching practice, I focus on mid-level leaders, but I call myself a self-leadership, personal agility, and change leadership coach. And to me, these three aspects, self-leadership, personal agility, and change leadership, um, my focus with my clients is to really flip the script and say, okay, what is it that I am doing? What is it that I might do? And how might I, uh, that's the word that you use, how might I actually expand the use of my agency? First of all, understand that I have agency, that I have power,
Yes, yes,
right?
yes.
The power inherent and all. So how might I first of all acknowledge that, become aware of it, acknowledge it, and then use it to take action? um so to me, that part that you talked about, and I think that's where the participatory piece comes up for me, is because we generally tend to blame the whole, we tend to blame systems, uh, and I think we forget that it's us who, and people like us, who make up these systems, these human systems. And so while it is easy and sometimes lazy to blame the system, it is so much more work and hard work to do to show up as a leader. So when we talk about leaders in general, I always, when I do this in closed groups, I always ask folks, okay, think about a leader. And then if you follow up with, okay, who did you think about? 9 times out of 10, people are thinking about someone else
Hmm.
as opposed to themselves. And then they
Hmm.
feel like, oh, I have this journey to make from where I am to be like that leader.
Hmm.
So when leadership, if we outsource leadership, I don't think we I think that affects our ability to engage with change.
Absolutely. Outsource and also look at it as um, something outside of me
Yes,
that's
yes,
happening, right?
yes,
Uh, I'm experiencing it, but it's almost like saying I don't have the power to do anything around this.
yes.
And that's where the agency comes in. I think that's it's not outsourced. So the reframe that needs to happen is that um, you can do great planning about change. You can do fantastic policies and processes can be put in place. But if you don't get alignment, um, change is not going to be effective.
Yeah, yeah. And going back to the three things we had talked about, leaders don't have all the answers, and that change is inevitable. It's always a constant. And the third thing around sense and respond. Um, I want to ask you, Priya, what has been your personal experience with sense and respond, or any of your consulting engagements? An example that comes up for you?
Yeah. Um, I'm going to talk about sense and response slightly differently.
Okay.
If I were to look at my own career
Mm,
from being a psychologist to a leadership coach, my path has not been very linear.
mm,
The core of what I do still remains, which is to make a difference. Right?
mm,
And over a period of time, I've come to realize that if you don't make changes, you don't grow.
mm,
Yeah. And then uh, you sort of that's it. You don't grow. And growth is such an important part of being relevant, staying in the game, still creating impact. But the
yes.
nature of impact changes, right? So we've got to understand, for me personally, it's been the sense of what else,
Mm,
how else is a question that I've always asked. So while I started out as just, doing only coaching, but in my peripheral vision, and I'm calling this a peripheral vision, that is, it may not be directly the path. It's not the next path and then the next step and then the next step. There are some steps that are outside of this straight line.
mm,
And to be okay to take that detour and come back, you may not come back to the same path, but you may come back somewhere close, but your direction is still the same.
mm, mm.
And so, from a psychologist to a leadership coach to a coach supervisor to a coach mentor, these were not things that I had planned when I started off.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it all has emerged because I'm always sensing what's happening and
Mm,
responding accordingly. And I think perhaps at some point I have told you, Meenakshi, that restlessness is my best friend. Because when I'm restless, then I know that there's something else to be done here, some
yes.
other opportunity to grow, some
Yes.
change is in the is out there.
Yeah. Yeah. That's beautifully put, Priya. That made me think about this other element that we wanted to talk about today, which is the three levels of change. Yeah.
Yes.
Before we do that, I just want to take a moment to thank everyone that's joining us live, and then folks that are going to watch the replay, because this will be available on our YouTube channels. And we invite your thoughts and questions as well as we go along. And we have roughly about another 20-25 minutes together today. So far we've talked about why we've talked about the distinction between leading change and leading through change. We've talked about the three reframes as far as change leadership is concerned. We've also talked about how it connects back to our last week's conversation around purpose, and how Priya, like the example that you shared, where your sense of purpose helps you lead change with more dexterity. And that's a I don't think we had that planned when we actually talked about this season, but I love that it's emerged from our conversation today. And so the next thing that we want to talk about is the levels. And Priya, as you shared your experience with sense and respond, you shared your personal story there. And to me, I'm seeing like how you at an individual level
Mhm.
manage change.
Yes.
And that's something that leaders at all levels can experience, and I think have the opportunity to experience. So to me, when I think about any sort of change, growth, or development, I always think about it in three levels, which is the self or the individual, and then the immediate next level, which could be teams, families, communities, whatever, that's your interpersonal. And then the institutional. So an individual, interpersonal, institutional. And institutional, again, could be your organization, a whole your society or country, whatever the frame is. And in my experience, as someone leading change, I think it's so easy to get caught up with the third level, like which is external facing. Um, and I think I learned this lesson the hard way is because one of my roles in my career has been to as a change leader. Like that was the business process transformation was the function that I was leading. And now when I look back, hindsight is 2020. I realized that while I was busy um, leading change and implementing change, the one thing I think that I didn't do as good a job of was self-management and self-regulation. So how was I showing up through all that change? And how much of that had an influence on the teams and the work that I was doing and the outcome. And now I know enough to say, okay, the self-management piece would have really helped me lead the change and bring a different energy to the work that I was doing.
Right.
So your personal story kind of led me to that, thinking about the three levels. What are your thoughts on the three levels in your experience?
You're absolutely spot on when you talk about the institution. We are so, as a change initiator, as we lead change, we're thinking about the bigger picture, the business outcome, how this is going to change things. And I think with a little bit of a conscious effort, you can also bring it down to the individual. How do I manage myself? But I think what we perhaps overlook is the interpersonal piece around it, right? Because when, and this is the principle of homeostasis, right? Where it says that when there is a change or a disruption, the ecosystem tries to bring it back to its previous state because that's the state that it knows of. It's comfortable. There's a rhythm around it. So the pull is to bring it back to its old state.
Yes, yes.
Now, unless we take care of the interpersonal piece, and if we do take care of that, then we are able to sustain this change and take this entire team or group of people to the new level.
Yeah.
Simple, very simplistic example is, as a leader, if I've decided today that, it's important that all of us give each other time and space to listen to others, right? Now, that's a change. Maybe the HR department, the L&D department, they are bringing about a big policy change around creating listening circles. Now, that's great, fantastic. At an individual level, I take responsibility. I'll make that change. It means I have to do a few things. I have to let go of a few things. But am I taking care of the people, the ecosystem, and how I'm relating to each other? If I'm able to do that, then this is a sustainable change. Else the rest of them are wondering now why all this now? They don't know the purpose, you see. The purpose is missing.
Yes, yes.
And so I think there is great value in being able to look at it from these three levels and give each of these levels its due importance or its due place when we are looking at change.
Yeah, yeah. And that brings up another point for me is, as leaders, one of our important responsibilities when we earlier talked about contextualizing purpose, it's also contextualizing change.
Yes.
Right. So at the organizational level, this is the change that we're talking about. What does this mean for you at your team level? And what does that mean for you at the individual level? Right.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so one of the three enablers of change is this communication, right? To be able to let them know during the change, how are we communicating? How are we telling them the impact, the role, the importance of this change? And that is when the change is happening. So it's during change.
Correct.
two other things that support this, right? And we sort of talked about it a little bit. One is, and it goes back to the sense and respond, right? Before
Mm,
change, we need to calibrate, put things in place. We have to
mm,
sense and respond, uh, put checks and balances in place. So how do we do this before we calibrate?
mm.
How do we do this during we communicate?
Yeah, yeah.
And what do we do after that is celebrate. And I think we
Mm,
should recognize the role that celebrate also has played
absolutely.
or can play.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I love our little three C's of leading
Yes.
change and leading through change. Yeah, so calibrate, communicate, and celebrate. And also, I love the way we this emerged in our prep conversations around the thinking about it in three stages: before, during, and after. And I know that in our discussions is also another thing we talked about is that because our change cycles are becoming more and more compressed, we may not even feel like there's a before, during, and after because it's just like a slew
Absolutely.
of changes, right?
Absolutely.
And it could be all kinds of things, ranging from stuff within your company to within your industry to geopolitical and all of that. So, however, there is before, during, and after. And as leaders, if we're able to not only ourselves take that pause, but also enable others to do that, to just pause and recognize the moment we are in or the phase we are
Mm,
in during the
mm,
change. Because one thing I know from personal experience is the tendency to just keep on doing. And we get to a point where we're, I'm sure several of us have seen that cartoon that says we're too busy to improve. So there's this prehistoric human trying to push a square wheel up a hill, and then somebody offers a round wheel, and they say, no, we're too busy doing this. So we find ourselves in that because we're so busy just doing, and particularly during times of change, which seems
yes.
like all the time these days, the ability to pause and reflect and really take the time. I think that's a creating that time and space is such a rare leadership skill, I would say, and such an important one.
Absolutely. Mhm. And in the business of it all, um, we have to move from point A to point B, but we forget to fuel.
Yes, that's a good one. Yeah, yeah. And yeah, and it's there's a John Dewey quote. John Dewey was an American philosopher who said that what was it? We uh, we don't learn from experience. We learn from reflecting on experience. And learning is so important during change because that's what helps us keep track of the why we started this change in the first place. And without that, without knowing what is it that we are after and are we measuring the right things,
Mm, mm,
that's the other element while we manage change. So the three C's really touches on all of that. So before, are we calibrating for the right things? Do we know what elements are we looking to change? And then the during, how well are we communicating that, contextualizing it at a org level, team level, and individual level? And then after, do we take the time to pause and celebrate and acknowledge the journey, not just the outcomes.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So a question to all those of you who are listening in perhaps is, um, think about a change that's on the horizon for you.
Mm,
And with the three reframes that we are offering, the enablers that we are offering, and understanding where you are, what level of change, what stage of change you are in, what is it that you'd like to do different?
mm,
How should you be thinking about this? How should you be thinking about leading change or leading through change
mm,
differently what needs to be reframed for you?
Yeah.
That's the question I'd like to leave the audience with.
Yeah, that's a wonderful invitation, Priya. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know about the audience. I have definitely enjoyed this conversation. It's given me the time to opportunity to reflect and also think about think about change in a different context. I think what I'm walking away with really is a sort of uh, a structure, if you will, a mental model to think about change, like the distinction between leading change and leading through change. Are you the ones creating the change, or are you the ones who are implementing or experiencing the change? How do you show up in these spaces, right? And the three reframes that we talked about, and um, the three levels. Oh, we did a lot of threes today. Three reframes, three levels of change, and three enablers, the three C's.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. That's it's very I'm it's a very refreshing model for me because I've been in this space. Organization change management is one of my areas of focus. So I spend a lot of time reading, thinking, and doing this work. So this conversation was extremely meaningful for me. What are your parting reflections?
Thinking, I've worked quite a bit as a coach, worked with leaders who are transitioning to next roles.
Hmm.
A lot of my clients are people who are transitioning to next roles, which means huge change.
Yes.
Right? Change. So I was just reflecting on how does one still connect to one's personal agency in this whole thing? How
Hmm.
can I participate in this change and not look at change as something that's happening to me?
Hmm.
And to be able to get to that space where I say, okay, there are some things I want to let go. There's some things I want to accept, some things that I'm open to. The mindset around
Yes.
transitioning to the next level. And that's what I'm left with. And this word is, participate, personal agency is
Hmm.
what's still ringing in my head. And I think that's the crux of the whole thing. And to be able to get there, I think it's about purpose.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. That's fantastic. And this is such a lovely wrap to our episode 2 on reframing leadership for an ever evolving world of work. So we talked about purpose in episode 1. Today we talked about leading change and leading through change. And we're going to wrap up next Tuesday, October 15th, with talking about leading with humanity. So we're going to connect purpose and change, and then talk about how to bring humanity back to the world of work. So we hope you'll join us again on third and final Tuesday of this season. Until then, take care, be well, and be a learn-it-all leader, and hope that you have fun with change. Thank you so much. Take care and be well.
Thank you, everyone. Bye, Meenakshi. Thank you.
Bye.